Hey, this is Reverend Dr. Paul Marzahn. Welcome to Evening Reading Scripture. I tried to do it online live, but it's somehow not allowing me to do so. I'm here in Jamaica, and we're pulling out a port here. So I thought I'd just try it on video and then download it later. So reading from Acts chapter 18, beginning verse 18. It says, Hode polos ete pros menas hameras, haikanas tois adelphois. So what I have here is that Paul remained many days with the brothers, and says, Apaxtemenos exple estin Syrian. So it says then he took his leave and sailed away to Syria, and with him Priscilla kai Aquila. So with him Priscilla and Aquila. And Kiramenos then Kentres, it says, having shaved in Kenchera the head he had for a vow. So he probably was doing what's called a Nazarite vow, perhaps, that he did, and then he was able to cut his hair after that. We're not sure, but it says that's what he did, is he shaved his head for a vow. Verse 19. Katin tisain dees ephason kakainas katapelen atos de iskelathan oistin synagogen. So basically it says they came now to Ephesus, and then left there he himself and entered into a synagogue where he reasoned with the Jews, and asking him now of them for a longer time to remain, he did not consent. So they wanted him to stay longer in Ephesus, but he didn't consent to do that. But having taken leave and having said it behooves me by all means the feast that I'm coming to keep in Jerusalem. So in other words, there's probably the Feast of the Tabernacles or one of the other Passover feasts that he had to get back to. He says, again, I will return to you, the God willing, and he sailed from Ephesus. Verse 22. It says, Kai Ketalathon Ace Caesarea. So they went on to Caesarea, and having Anabas Kai Epasemonos, it says, having gone up and having greeted the Ecclesian, which is the word for church, Ecclesia, the gathered, Katabi Ice Antioch. So then he went down to Antioch. Verse 23. Kai Politzas Chronantina Exelfen. So, and then he stayed the word chronos is chronological time. So he stayed some time and went forth, passing through successfully the Galatian region in Phrygia, strengthening all the Mathetes, the disciples. A Jew now named Apollos, named of Alexandrius, and native men, eloquent, came to Ephesus, mighty, being in the scriptures. It means he knew the scriptures quite well. He was instructed in the way of the Lord and being fervent in the Spirit. He was speaking and teaching earnestly the things concerning the Jesus, known only the baptism of John. So he knew certain things, but didn't know a lot about Jesus. So Caesar then began to speak boldly in the synagogue. Having heard, however, Priscilla and Aquila, they took to him, and more accurately to him expounded the way of God. So it says they love that word more accurately. It's akrabesteron. So it's a good word to look up in chapter 18, verse 26, if you want to look that up in the Strong's Concordance, is that accurately to him expounded the way of God. Verse 27, and resolving then he to pass through the Acacia, having protoposmonoi, hoi adelphoi, grapisen toi mathetes. So it says that encouraged the brothers and wrote to the disciples, again that word mathetes, like the word Matthew, I always call that disciple, to apodexis they, it means welcome him. And when he paragenomenos, when he arrived, symbolateo pole tois parapetusica. So, and it says, when he having arrived, he helped greatly those who believed. Whenever you have the pepasturikusin, so pepes, whenever the word pistis, it's the word believe or to have faith. So I believed through the caritas, which was the word for grace, charis. So powerfully for the Jews, he was refuting publicly, showing the scriptures to be Jesus Christ. So we're going to look at the little bit. It says in the NIV. So Paul stayed down in Corinth, Acts 18:18, for some time. Then he left the brothers and sisters and sailed to Syria, accompanied by Priscilla and Aquila. Before he sailed, he had his hair cut off at Cenchrea because of a vow that he had taken. They arrived at Ephesus, where Paul left Priscilla and Aquila, and he himself went into the synagogue and reasoned with the Jews. When they asked him to spend more time with them, he declined. But as he left, he promised, I will be back if it is God's will, and I'll come back. Then he set sail for Ephesus. When he landed at Caesarea, he went up to Jerusalem and greeted the church, then went down to Antioch. And after spending some time in Antioch, Paul set out from there and traveled from place to place through the region of Galatia and Phrygia, strengthening all the disciples. Meanwhile, a Jew named Apollos, a native of Alexandria, came to Ephesus. He was a learned man of the scriptures, and he had been instructed in the way of the Lord. He spoke with great fervor and taught about Jesus accurately. Though he knew only the baptism of John, he began to speak boldly in the synagogues. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they invited him to their home, explained to him the way of God more accurately. I love that, or adequately. When Paul wanted to go to Achaia, brothers and sisters encouraged him and wrote to the disciples there to welcome him. And when he arrived, he was great help to those by whom the grace believed. For he vigorously refuted his Jewish opponents in public debate, proving that the scriptures of Jesus was the Messiah. So there we go. So that's our reading for today. Hope you had a blessed day, and we will see you again tomorrow.